It is amazing to think that we have harvested the power of wind with giant turbines, the largest rivers in the world with dams, and controlled the split of the atom in a nuclear power plant. Humanity has seemingly controlled nature, except one important aspect of it, ourselves. Jesus made that point in the gospel when he said that we must deny ourselves and take up our cross. This means we need to master the conquest of self through mortification and suffering out of love. Venerable Archbishop Fulton Sheen defined mortification as dying to live for the love of God. St. Augustine learned this. In his youth, he liked to steal, gamble, teach heresy, and even fathered a child out of wedlock. Augustine then underwent a powerful conversion. Thus he gave up his lower life to purchase a higher one, or denied himself through mortification. Was it worth it? Yes. He wrote, "To fall in love with God is the greatest of all romances. To seek him, the greatest adventure. To find him, the greatest human achievement." Suffering is the next step, or wall, that we must cross over. St. Paul wrote, "We proclaim Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength." In fact, Peter argued with the Lord when he mentioned having to suffer and die. He yelled, "God forbid, Lord." The divinity of Christ Peter could accept, but a suffering Christ he would not. Peter could not see defeat as a condition of victory, nor the cross as a path to resurrection, that the hammer blow of nails would soon be glorified wounds, that a crown of thorns is worn before a halo of light. Without the descent into the grave, there would be no ascension, that there is always a Good Friday before an Easter morning. Jesus said, "Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains just a grain of wheat. But if it dies, it produces much fruit." For Jesus, there was no way but the way of the cross. So Jesus rebuked Peter, "Get behind me, Satan." Peter was offering Jesus the same temptation he faced in the desert and in the Garden of Gethsemane, the temptation to take another way. No one wants a cross. No one wants to die in agony. And so Satan seeks to make us turn from the path that God has set before us. But if Jesus traveled this path, then so must we. We must realize that the difference between pain and sacrifice is love. The crucifixion proves that love can endure any sacrifice. In fact, love is not worth calling it love unless we are prepared to suffer for the ones we love. When a parent stays up with a sick child at night, we call it a sacrifice. The parent calls it love. A wife who cares for a husband who is terminally ill, we comment on her sacrifice. She reflects on her love. When a soldier runs into a barrage of gunfire to pull out a wounded brother in arms, we pin a medal for sacrifice. He never thought twice about it because of love. We recognize people's sacrificial love as heroic and have watched our Lord do the same. Why would Jesus expect less of us if we call ourselves his disciple? Fulton Sheen wrote, "The day that we forget that love is identical with sacrifice, we will ask how a God of love could demand mortification and self-denial." If we don't like the world we live in, maybe it is because it no longer reflects the mortification and sacrificial love of the one who created us, namely Jesus Christ. No one said living for God was easy. St. Francis de Sales said, "Perseverance will be the test of our self-surrender to God. In this war we are always victorious, provided that we are willing to fight." If we want to go where Jesus ultimately went, Heaven? Then there is only one way, the way of the cross. For Thomas à Kempis, the author of The Imitation of Christ, wrote, Jesus has many lovers of his heavenly kingdom, but few bearers of his cross. It's our choice. Take the cross or take the loss.